Clark, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for coming this evening. I understand you had some problems earlier. Glad you got those worked out up there where you are. And so now, Clark, we'll turn it over to you for your Modeling with Clark segment.
All right. Well, that was an interesting segment, you guys. I appreciated the information, especially about LaBelle Works and about Harry Brunk stuff. So that's kind of interesting. And I knew Jim Vale fairly well, and a lot of the other narrow gaugers out in California. So that was kind of interesting. And I wish I would have known that layout was in Cheyenne. I drove through there when we went to go to the Salt Lake Convention. I would have stopped in. All right. Let's see. I got to do sharing, sir.
You should have it.
Okay.
Yep, it's on. So you're good to go, Clark.
All right. And let's see. So this is 15 minutes ago, Clark. Aren't you guys lucky? This is number 2 in our tips and tricks for new tracks. So we're gonna touch about electrical tips for model railroading, just some points of interest and so forth. Nothing too complicated. So let's talk electrical things. So this is a very quick look at some tips and tricks you might want to try to improve your model railroading. So let's go. First of all, I have recently been, I don't know, LED to death and doing all kinds of things. And our friends at NCE have this little LED tester, and it works terrific. And it's just a real simple thing. If you get frustrated, you put an LED in and it doesn't seem to work, is it the LED or whatever? You can use these little testers, and it's just a little simple thing that really works well. And I've it saved me a lot of grief and a lot of times. So another thing is electrical tips and wire terminals. These little orange things, this is a Tam Valley frog juicer, but when you screw the wires into these connectors, a lot of times guys will tin them or whatever, but I like to use the wire terminals. One, they make it really neat. It reduces shorts, and it's easier than tinning with a soldering iron. What are they? Well, they're basically these ferrules, and they come in all kinds of different sizes, and you have a crimper. So a terminal is at the point at which a conductor from a component or device usually comes to an end, or a terminal may be simply the end of a wire, and or may be fitted with a connector or fastener. So here's another box of them, and here's just a wire and a little terminal. The terminals are generally sized to the wire, and sometimes you can use, small ones. NCE, for example, they have a very, very heavy wire going into their unit, and if you strip it away a little bit, you can use one of the thin ones, and then you can just insert it very easily into their connector. A ferrule crimping tool is really the best way to do it. I used to do it by just using a pair of pliers and so forth, and I'll show that in a second. But when you actually crimp it with one of these proper tools, you get a circular crimp, and it doesn't distort the shape of the wire and the ferrule. As I said, if you don't have a crimping tool, you can just use a pair of little needle nose pliers. You stick the wire through the terminal and just squeeze it. You can cut it off to length, and there you have it. But a crimping tool is really the right tool for the job, and it's always best to use the right tool to complete a task. You'll see it makes it a nice clean end, and it rounds it and keeps it nice to the shape, and crimps it onto the wire so it doesn't come off. And when you hook it up, it makes it nice and neat and professional job, and you don't have a lot of problems. So a short detector. Years and years ago, I think it was oh boy, and I forget the name. One of the guys who does quite a bit of blogs and so forth, and has fantastic information. He had this little short detector, and I built it just myself. It's basically a plastic box with an on and off switch. And I bought these connectors, and you basically can use two different ones. These ones are just probes, so you touch it to the track. If this beeps, you have a short. If it doesn't beep, you're good. So it's just like a continuity connector. And I built this simple homemade detector to check out the layout. And I always use it when I'm doing track work. And when I first just even put the bus on, and I haven't connected it to the power supply, and I'm connecting it to the track, if I do something wrong, if there's a problem with track work, it will immediately tell me. And it's the worst thing you can do is do the whole track work and the whole wiring and then turn it on and expect it to work, because it isn't. There's going to be a short or something somewhere. So if you do it as you go, you won't have those problems. And it's very simple. It's just a 9-volt battery with a little buzzer, an on and off switch. And then I have these two terminal posts with the test leads to attach to the track. And it basically, all it is making a complete circuit, which would make the buzzer sound. So if the polarity is right, there will be no continuity, therefore the buzzer doesn't go off. And again, you can buy these little piezo buzzers, simple buzzer off of the nets. All you need is an on and off toggle switch, and these small banana terminal posts you can buy almost anywhere. Even, used stuff is fine.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
When you usually in the past, I mean, my background is using an ohm meter, right? You get
Yep.
0
Yep.
and you're good. My question to you is, at least in the 0 and 30 world, they suggest if you're doing long runs to solder connections to every section of track. So if you're using like flex track, you're doing it about every 3 feet. What's the sequence of testing that? So,
well, I just put it on, I just connect that onto the end of the bus. And as I start to attach the feeders, it'll
got
just
it. Okay, that's what I was looking for. That might not be a bad thing to leave on all the time, actually.
Yeah, I do when I'm wiring, and some guys have used LEDs. The problem is if you happen to be under the layout or not looking for it, you won't think of anything is wrong. But when you hear that buzz, you've done something wrong, and you don't have to go and look to see if you've done something wrong. I used to use an ohm meter as well, and I still do for sort of fine tuning stuff. But if I hear that buzz right away, I know from underneath the layout or wherever I'm working on, I know I've got a problem.
Thank you. I think that's a pretty useful thing.
So as I said, you can buy these little project boxes. Guys who are 3D printers can make them up really easy. You just drill a hole. You just drill a hole, for the on off, and drill a little bit out here and put the battery and all the stuff in. I did drill a couple holes on the bottom so that and I glued the buzzer in there just so it would be a little louder and you could hear it. So here it is here, hooked up to my bus on one end. And I just turn it on, and then when I'm working on it, when I'm finished, I turn it off. But I know immediately if I hook something out wrong. TTop Connector.
Clark?
Yep.
Even better, if you can find it, is to get 2 buzzers that make it they're different sounds, different notes.
Yep.
And the ensuing sound is horrendous, and you cannot mistake it for anything else.
Yeah. Usually that's me. That's usually me grabbing the wrong side of the soldering iron.
It's sort of like listening to Dylan.
Yeah.
So
let me continue this, and we can get back to it. Though TTop connectors, I don't know if any of you use them or not, but they are fantastic. So what is a TTop? Well, basically it's a male spade connector, and then you get a female T-top, and basically it's got a little tooth in it here, and you fold it over the wire, and it's they are correct to the wire size, so you have to watch that. And then I just use a pair of pliers and snap it. You can actually buy the 3M lock pliers, but they're very expensive, and I don't think you need it for what you're going to do here. And then once you've got that around, all you have to do is plug in the T part of the spade into the T-top, and you've made your connection. Now, one of the neat things about this is if you do get a short, you can unplug it, and you don't have to do any unsoldering. You don't have to do any wiring per se. You just plug it in or plug it out, unplug it. And you can look to see what you did wrong. And a lot of times it's, you know, I put the black wire on the red wire type of thing, and you can switch them around.
This is actually brilliant. I can't believe, I've never seen these, and I'm an electrical engineer. This is really brilliant because it stops at under benchwork soldering.
Absolutely.
Totally eliminates that pain in the ass.
Yep. And you know, it's really quick. They will snap in together. What's the failure rate? Some people say, oh, I have to solder. I have built several layouts like this. I've used them on modules. I would say it's maybe a 0.5% failure where you don't get a good connection. But you can check that and, you know, come back and fix that. But most of the time it's because when you insert the spade, it's maybe a little off skew and it doesn't go straight in. So when you reposition it and push it in properly, you have no problems. Here it is on a layout. You can obviously the red to the red wire and the black to the black, and you're ready to go. And you can put multiples on here for different sections of track, and you just keep. Now some guys will put one wire and kind of pigtail it off. I prefer to have them all separate because then I can pull them apart one by one to find if I have a short. The other thing is a little cable test. You can buy these off Amazon and all kinds of places when you're making your own DCC cables. That is the biggest failure when people make cables, is that they don't test them. And it's very simple. You plug in one of the plugs up to the top of the main testing unit, and then this one here, and I should have taken it off, this actual piece comes apart, and you plug it into the top or the bottom, depending on if you're using RJ11 or RJ45. And then you just turn this off, and you'll see it go 1, 2, 3, and over here you should see the corresponding LED light up. And if you don't, if it goes 1, 3, 4, 5, you know, number 2 is either got a break in it, or you haven't squeezed the telephone jack onto the wire properly, and generally that's the case. And so you go back and fix it. But you can test in the module groups. The guys will run the length, and they'll test the module connections for all the face plates and make sure they're all good, so that there's no problems when there's a show on. And here it is, just connected in here. As I said, you can take these pieces off, and you can have one at one end and one at the other, and it's just, and these are very inexpensive. I think you can get 2 for like 18 bucks. And you can get them at Amazon. The other thing is the DCC Ramp Meter. This is made by the Ramp Meter guys. Tony's Train sells them. Walther sells them. This is the one with the case. There are several different models. This is almost a must if you're in DCC. Basically, you can hook this up. You can see the split here, and these 2 little pins, you just turn it up, touch it to each rail. It will tell you, one, if it's on DCC or if it's AC. It will also tell you your volts. Now, you can run it through this machine to get your amps as well. And if you're doing a home layout, a lot of people in DCC go, well, I got to have boosters. Well, most of the time you don't, depending on how much you need for the layout. if you've got 500 locomotives on, they all draw probably about 0.40. They're a little under 5. Yeah, a 5 amp system, you're going to run out of power. But if you've got 10 locomotives, you know, running, you're only at about 2.5. Now, when you have trains running and you're accelerating them, you will see they draw much more. Now, if you're running an old Athearn with a decoder in it, they take about 2 themselves. But you can see how much power you're using. And I really suggest you use these to figure out what amperage and how many boosters you are actually needing for your layout when you're doing DCC. And that's it.